The sun was already low when I stepped out of the hideout. That red glow, same one I used to love as a kid, painted the whole block like blood spilled over the sky. Kinda poetic, huh? Fitting way to end it all. I had one clip left, one mag, one plan. All week, word spread. Dre was back from hell. I'd burned 2 of their stash houses, took out Rico in his own car wash, and left Lil Tone hanging in the alley with his chain stuffed down his throat. They called me the Ghost, but ghosts don't stay forever. Tonight, I was gonna finish it with Kane, the man who made me what I am, the man who took everything. I moved down 84th with a slow stride, hoodie up, heat tucked in my waistband. The block was quiet in that strange way, like it knew. Kids gone, music off, even dogs didn't bark. I stopped at Mama D's porch, the old lady who used to give me candy when I was little. She peeked out, eyes wide. "Baby, what you doing with that look in your eyes?" I just smiled, finishing what they started. She shook her head slow, lips trembling. "Don't let the devil eat what's left of you." But the devil already had seconds. Kane's spot was the old rec center. Used to be a place where we balled, where I had dreams bigger than the block. Now it was his throne, fortified, guarded, desecrated. I crouched behind the corner, eyes scanning. 2 lookouts, one pacing near the entrance, another smoking by the back gate. Routine, lazy, overconfident. I waited for a car to roll by, the bass booming, and when it did, I moved. Quick, silent, steel in hand. The first guard didn't even see me. My blade slid under his chin, warm spray on my hand. Second one turned, eyes wide, pop pop. He dropped, cigarette still burning between his fingers. I slipped inside. The smell hit first, weed, sweat, gun oil, and that faint scent of bleach they used after a killing. Voices came from the gym. I followed, staying low. Through the cracked door, I saw them. 5 bloods around a table, counting stacks. And Kane, in the middle, calm, grinning, still tall, still built like a linebacker, same cold eyes that looked through you like you were glass. He had on that red bomber with the silver skull chain I once envied. Now it made me sick. "Yo, we find this fool Dre yet?" one of them asked. Kane smirked. "He out there playing soldier. But he'll come. They always do. And when he does, we bury him right here where he used to hoop." He was right about one thing. I kicked the door open. The room froze. For a second, it was like time forgot to move. Then chaos. I fired first. 2 dropped instantly. The third rushed with a bat. Mistake. My bullet caught him mid-swing. Blood sprayed across the court's faded white lines, dripping on the home side of the scoreboard. "Dre!" Kane roared, flipping the table, grabbing his gun. "You finally came back, huh? You think this gon' fix it? You think killing me gon' bring your brother back?" My hand trembled, but not from fear. From rage so deep it felt holy. "This ain't about bringing him back," I said. "It's about making sure you follow him." He laughed, cold. "Then come make me." He moved fast, faster than I remembered. Bullets screamed past me, shattering glass and echoing like fireworks. I rolled behind the bleachers, ducked low, fired blind. He kept talking, taunting. "You think you the only one who lost somebody? You think the Bloods didn't take from me too? This life don't care about none of us. Lil bro." That word bro burned like acid. "You stopped being my brother the night you left him to die." I jumped out, both hands on the piece, firing till it clicked empty. He staggered, hit in the side, but still coming. We crashed into each other, fists and fury, rolling across the dusty court. His gun clattered away. Mine too. Now it was just us. Flesh and hate. He slammed me into the wall, knuckles cracking against my jaw. "I made you tough. You wouldn't have survived without me." I spat blood and grinned. "Maybe, but I ain't surviving for you anymore." I drove the knife up under his ribs. He gasped, red pouring from his lips, eyes wide like he couldn't believe it. For a second, he almost looked human again, like the Kane I used to know, the one who bought me my first sneakers. "Dre," he whispered, voice shaking. "It never had to be like this." "Yeah," I said softly. But you made sure it would be. He fell. Hard. The echo bounced off the walls like a gunshot. I stood over him, chest heaving, blood soaking into my hoodie. All around me, silence. Only the scoreboard still lit, frozen at 24-17. The last game we ever played together. My hands trembled as I picked up his gun. I thought about finishing it, putting one in my own head, ending the loop. But then I saw the light flicker through the broken windows, that same sunset bleeding red over everything. And I realized, maybe this was the ending. Maybe I didn't need to die here. Maybe walking away was the real punishment. I stepped outside, the world spinning, sirens wailing far away, each step heavier than the last. Mama D was still on her porch, crying. She didn't ask what happened. She didn't need to. She just looked at me, at the blood on my hands, and whispered a prayer. I nodded, half smiling through the pain. Told you, Mama. I was just finishing what they started. Then I kept walking, past the corners, past the murals, past the ghosts. Every wall painted in red. Every face I once knew gone. I didn't go back to my old apartment. Didn't go back to the graveyard either. Instead, I found a bench near the water, where the city lights met the dark sky. I sat there till dawn, gun heavy on my thigh, heart even heavier. Somewhere in the distance, I could hear kids playing again, life going on. And for the first time in years, I let myself breathe. Not free, not clean, but alive. When the cops finally came, I didn't run, didn't fight, just raised my hands slow, feeling the morning air on my face. One of them shouted my name like I was a legend. Maybe I was in the worst way possible. They cuffed me, read me my rights, pushed my head down into the car. And as the door slammed, I saw the sunrise hit the skyline. Bright gold over red brick. Beautiful, unreal, like something worth dying for. In the back seat, I closed my eyes. And for a second, just a second, I saw him, my little brother, smiling, basketball under his arm, waving from that same court where everything went to hell. Come home, Dre, he said. Soon, I whispered. Real soon. The car pulled away, and behind us, the block kept breathing. Same streets, same pain, same heartbeat of a city that never learned how to heal. Only difference was, for once, I wasn't part of it anymore. Like and subscribe if you want more stories from the block. Blood on my hoodie, smoke in my lungs, and the echo of tires screeching somewhere down Avalon made my heartbeat sound like gunfire. I pressed my back against the cold brick wall, trying to steady my breathing. My right hand was still shaking, gripping the pistol like it could anchor me to the ground. The metallic smell of gunpowder mixed with the sour stench of garbage and rain. A flickering streetlight painted the alley in red and white flashes, police sirens reflecting off wet asphalt. That's when I heard them, the footsteps. Fast, angry, getting closer. Joe. He went this way, a voice I recognized. Too well. Mace, second in command for the Rollin' Bloods on this side of South Central. Big dude, built like a brick wall, face carved with scars that looked like war stories. He was the one who told me once, you either run with the block or you get run over by it. Guess I chose wrong. My sneakers slid on the slick pavement as I bolted deeper into the alley, vaulting over trash cans, past a busted fence, into the backyard of a boarded-up house. The rain started to fall harder, smearing the blood across my sleeve. I didn't even know if it was mine. Somewhere behind me, I heard the pounding of boots and the metallic click of safeties being switched off. They were close. I ducked behind a rusted car frame and forced myself to breathe quiet. I could still hear Mace barking orders. Spread out. He's not making it outta here alive. You think he can shoot my lil bro and walk? Nah, not tonight. My chest burned. The words shoot my lil bro hit like a punch. I hadn't meant to kill him. Swear to God, I hadn't. Started just 2 hours earlier. Back at the corner of 87th and Vermont. A place that smelled like smoke, tacos, and trouble. I was sitting outside the bodega, rolling dice with Tino and Kian, the two closest things I had to brothers since middle school. We'd all grown up together. Same block, same school, same messed up dreams of getting out. but we'd chosen different roads to try and make it happen. Tino ran with the Bloods, full red flag deep in it. Kian worked at his uncle's garage, kept his head low, stayed out of gang politics. Me? I stayed somewhere in between, never claimed the set, never disrespected it either. I knew enough to survive, not enough to belong. But that night, I made a mistake. A silver Dodge Charger rolled up slow, bass thumping low enough to shake the concrete. I looked up and saw Mace in the driver's seat, his little brother Jalen in the back. Jalen was just a kid, 17, loud, always trying to prove he was harder than he was. He was wearing a red hoodie too clean for these streets, a chain that probably wasn't even his, and a smirk that always begged for attention. He leaned out the window and called, "Yo, Deshaun, that your girl walking down the block?" I froze. They were talking about Kayla, my ex. She was coming out the corner store, umbrella in hand, hoodie up. We'd broken up 2 months ago, but she was still my weakness. Jalen knew that. He grinned. "Tell her I said what's up. She looking fine as hell tonight." Tino laughed, like it was nothing, but something inside me snapped. I stood up, dice still in my palm, heart thumping. "AOJ, chill with that." Jalen just smirked wider. "Why? You don't claim her no more, right? Maybe she like real Bloods." I stepped off the curb. "Say that again." He laughed. "Hi, cocky stupid. You heard me, fool. Maybe she like..." And that's when I swung. He wasn't ready. My fist connected with his jaw, hard enough to drop him halfway out the car window. Mace shouted something, jumped out, but I didn't care. Adrenaline had taken the wheel. Jalen hit the ground and reached for something under his hoodie. I didn't even think. Just muscle memory. Just fear. I pulled the piece from my waistband, the one I only carried 'cause these streets didn't forgive unarmed men. And when I saw the flash of metal in his hand, I fired. Once, then twice. The world went silent except for the ringing in my ears. Jalen dropped, blood blooming dark across his hoodie. The gun he'd been reaching for clattered out. Plastic. A damn airsoft pistol. Tino froze. Mace's face twisted into something I'd never seen before. A mix of grief and hate. He went down to his brother's side, hands shaking, yelling something that got lost under the sound of my heart pounding. And I ran. Now I was here, hiding like a cornered animal, heart chewing through my ribs. Sirens wailed somewhere far off, but they weren't for me yet. The Bloods moved through the blocks faster than cops ever could. If they wanted you gone, you disappeared before sunrise. I heard the crunch of glass under boots. Mace's voice again, closer now. "You can't hide forever, Deshaun. You took blood from the block. You know what that means." Yeah, I knew. There was only one punishment for killing one of their own, even by accident. I checked my gun. 1 bullet left. No spare clip. No plan. When the footsteps moved past the yard, I took my shot. Not at them, but at escape. Hopped the fence, tore my jeans on the metal, and sprinted through the maze of back streets until my lungs felt like they were tearing apart. By the time I stopped, I was at the canal, that stretch of concrete that cut through the south side like a scar. The water stank of oil and rust. I crouched under the bridge, rain dripping through the cracks above, and finally let the tears fall. "Damn it, Jalen," I whispered. "Why'd you reach?" The echo swallowed my words. I must have stayed there an hour, maybe more, until my phone buzzed. Unknown number, but the message hit harder than a bullet. "You got 24 hours. Then your mom next." I stared at the screen, my stomach turning to ice. They knew where she lived, course they did. Everyone did. My mom, Loretta, still worked nights at St. Mary's Hospital. Sweetest woman in the world. Too proud to move even when I begged her to. Said the neighborhood raised her so she wasn't gonna run from it. Now that pride might get her killed. I wiped my face, shoved the phone in my pocket, and started walking. The rain had stopped, but the whole world still felt soaked in red. By the time I reached our apartment on 83rd, dawn was creeping in. The streets were quiet, too quiet. Every shadow looked like a setup. I moved careful, checking corners, scanning parked cars for movement. That paranoia wasn't paranoia anymore. It was survival. I took the back stairs up to our unit, pushed open the door with my key halfway drawn just in case. The smell of burnt coffee hit me first. She was already up. Mom turned from the stove, wearing her old nurse scrubs and that same tired smile she always tried to hide behind. "Lord, Deshawn, where you been? You look like hell." I tried to smile, failed. "Just got into some mess, Ma." She looked closer, eyes narrowing. "That blood on you?" I glanced down. "It ain't mine." That didn't make her feel better. She walked over, put a hand on my cheek. "You promised me you weren't running with them boys." "I'm not." And that was technically true. I hadn't ever joined. But tonight, it didn't matter. She sighed, shook her head, and went back to stirring her coffee. "You keep living halfway in that life, son. You gon' end up buried on both sides." I wanted to tell her everything right then, the fight, the shooting, the message. But how do you tell your mother her son just started a war with the Bloods? Instead, I just said, "I might need to lay low for a while." Her spoon froze mid-stir. "Lay low from who?" Before I could answer, there was a knock at the door. 3 short taps. Pause. 2 more. The kind of knock that makes your bones go cold. "Who's that?" Mom whispered. I motioned for her to stay back. My hand went to the gun in my waistband. I crept to the peephole and looked. Empty hallway. Then the knock came again. Same rhythm. I opened the door just a crack, and something slid through the gap, hitting the floor. A red bandana, tied around a bullet. When I looked up again, the hallway was empty. Mom saw it and gasped. "Deshawn, what is that?" I didn't answer. I just grabbed my backpack from under the couch, tossed in a hoodie, a clip, and the last of my cash. Maybe a couple $100. Mom grabbed my arm. "You tell me what's going on right now." Her eyes were wet, scared. I'd never seen her look that way, not even when the cops raided the building last year. I took a breath. "They comin' for me, Ma." Her grip tightened. "Who?" "The Bloods." The silence that followed felt like the whole room stopped breathing. She shook her head. No, you didn't." "What did you do?" "I didn't mean to. It was an accident. But they ain't gonna care." I could see it in her eyes, that flash of heartbreak and resignation. The same one she had when she found out I got expelled sophomore year. She let go, turned away. "You gotta go, baby. That hurt worse than any bullet. I can't just leave you here. You gotta go," she shouted, voice cracking. "They'll come for me if you stay, maybe even if you don't. But I raised you to stand up, not to die stupid. Go." I stood there, staring at her back, trying to burn the image of her into my mind. The old blue robe, the sound of her coffee stirring, the hum of the fridge, all of it. Because deep down, I knew I might not see her again. "I'll fix this," I said quietly. "I swear." She didn't turn around. "You can't fix blood with more blood." But I was already out the door. I spent the rest of that day drifting, from alley to alley, rooftop to rooftop, avoiding red flags and red cars like they were ghosts. Every corner store, every barber, every face felt like it could be theirs. The Bloods had reach, phones, eyes, cousins on every block. And I was the target now. Around sunset, I ended up by an old basketball court behind Jefferson High. It was where we used to hoop as kids before life got heavy. I sat on the broken bench watching a group of younger kids play. For a second, it almost felt normal. Then I saw the car. Same silver Charger, bullet holes patched, tinted windows rolling slow past the fence. Mace was driving, and this time he saw me. The world narrowed into tunnel vision. He hit the brakes, jumped out, gun already raised. I dove behind the bench as bullets tore through the chain link fence. Sparks flew. Kids screamed, scattering like pigeons. One bullet grazed my shoulder, hot pain slicing through the flesh. I crawled to the far side, pulled my gun, and fired back. One shot cracked the passenger mirror. Another punched the hood. Mace ducked behind the car, firing blind. Then I heard him yell, "You think you can hide forever, lil man? You ain't walking out this city alive. Then come make it happen." I shouted back, blood dripping from my arm. We traded shots till both clips clicked empty. The silence after was deafening. Just the sound of my ragged breathing and the distant echo of sirens. Mace climbed into the car and peeled off, tires screaming, leaving the smell of burnt rubber and vengeance hanging in the air. I stumbled into a corner store a few blocks away, half limping, shoulder burning. The old man behind the counter, Mr. Alvarez, looked up in shock. Dios mío, Deshawn, what happened? Just need a first aid kit, I muttered. He grabbed one from behind the register, handed it over without asking questions. He'd been in the neighborhood long enough to know silence saved lives. As I patched my shoulder with shaking hands, he said quietly, "They looking for you." I froze. "Who told you that?" "Word travels fast when blood spills. You better disappear, Mijo." "Yeah," I said, tightening the bandage. "That's the plan." But even as I said it, something inside me shifted. I realized disappearing wasn't gonna stop this. Running would just get my mom killed, maybe Tino too. If I wanted this to end, I had to end it myself. One man against a set that ruled half the city. Crazy. Impossible. But at that point, I didn't care. I'd already lost everything worth protecting. By midnight, I was back in the alley where it all started. Same flickering light, same smell of rain and smoke. Only this time, I wasn't running. I crouched behind a dumpster, reloaded my gun, and stared down the street toward Mace's block. My hands were steady now. No more shaking. No more fear. The Bloods thought I'd die tonight. Maybe I would. But not before I made them bleed first. The sound of distant bass rolled down the street. A convoy of cars, red lights flashing behind tinted windows. They were coming. I took one last breath, pulled my hoodie tight, and stepped out into the streetlight. The rain started again, slow, cold, cleansing. "Come on, Mace," I whispered. "Let's finish this." And when those headlights hit me full in the chest, I didn't flinch. Because for the first time all night, I wasn't running anymore. The first car stopped halfway down the block. Engine humming, music cut. Then the doors opened, and 5 red flags stepped out. I could see their faces under the streetlight, silhouettes soaked in rain and rage. Mace was in front, hoodie down, gun in hand, chain glinting like a trophy. Behind him, the others fanned out, forming that half-moon stance I'd seen them use on enemies 100 times before. Only this time, I was the one in the circle. "You got balls coming back here?" Mace said, voice steady, almost calm. "But you know what they say, balls don't stop bullets." The rain dripped from my eyelashes. "You done talking?" That made him laugh. Cold. "You killed my brother and you think you get to talk? Nah, you listen." He took a slow step forward, gun leveled at my chest. "On this block, we don't let ghosts breathe. You got one last prayer before I..." Tires screamed behind him. Another car turned the corner fast, black Impala, no lights, headed straight for the group. For a second, everyone froze. Then, bam, the car clipped one of the Bloods, sending him flying across the hood. Chaos erupted. Mace dove for cover, shouting orders. I didn't waste the moment. Bolted down the side alley as gunfire ripped through the rain. The Impala stopped halfway, door swinging open. A voice yelled, "Get in!" I hesitated, then saw the face. Tino. I jumped in, slammed the door, and Tino floored it. Bullets cracked the rear window as we fishtailed onto the main street. "What the hell you doing here?" I shouted. He kept his eyes on the road. "What you think, fool? You out here making headlines. Whole set talking about the dude who shot Jalen and didn't die yet." "I didn't mean to." "Save it." "I know, but they ain't gonna care. Mace already put money on your head. Said whoever brings him your chain gets 10 racks. My chest tightened. "They'll go after my mom." He nodded grimly. "They already watchin' her spot. I sent my cousin to move her out for now." I looked at him, shocked. "You did that?" Tino's jaw flexed. "Yeah, you may be stupid, but you my brother. Always was." For the first time in hours, something like relief cut through the fear. I slumped back, exhaling hard. Then I noticed the duffel bag between his feet. Stuffed. Heavy. "What's that?" He glanced at it. "Insurance." He turned off onto a dead-end street and parked under an overpass. The rain echoed like static on the metal above. He opened the bag, bricks of C4, wires, 2 handguns, and stacks of old burner phones. I blinked. "Where the hell you get all this?" He smirked. "You forget who my uncle is? He used to run with the Yardie crews back in the day. Still got friends who owe him favors." I stared at the explosives, the reality setting in. "You trying to start a war?" He looked at me dead in the eye. "It already started, D. You just the reason they finally admitted it." We spent the next hour planning. If the Bloods wanted me gone, fine. I'd hit them first. But this wasn't about chaos. It was about surgically breaking the thing they thought couldn't break. Their control. Mace ran everything from a warehouse on 92nd, their drop spot for money, guns, dope. He kept the soldiers in line through fear and cash. You burn that hub, you burn the empire. I didn't have an army, but I had Tino and rage. Sometimes that's enough. Tino handed me one of the burners. They move product through that warehouse every Thursday night. That's tonight. Perfect. He raised an eyebrow. "You sure you ready for this?" I looked down at my bandaged shoulder, still throbbing. "I don't get ready. I just do." He grinned. "Then let's make some noise." We rolled out near midnight, both of us dressed in black hoodies and gloves, faces half covered. The city looked like it was holding its breath. Streets empty, sky low and gray, rain misting like smoke. We parked 3 blocks from the warehouse. You could smell the oil and metal even from there. I peeked through binoculars. 2 guards by the loading dock, 1 pacing near the fence, 1 in the tower with an AR. Inside, maybe a dozen more. All Bloods. Tino set the C4 on the passenger seat, checking the timer. "We plant this by the east wall, rig the signal through my phone. Give us 5 minutes to clear out." Simple. He looked at me. "If we get caught, we won't. Then at least make it count." We moved through the shadows, hugging the fence line. The night buzzed with the hum of distant traffic and the metallic clatter of rain on corrugated steel. My heart beat slow. Controlled fear had burned itself out hours ago. Tino slipped through a gap in the fence first. I followed. The smell of gas and sweat hit us instantly. One of the guards was leaning against a crate, scrolling his phone, hood up. We crept closer until I could see the tattoo on his neck, a red teardrop. I grabbed him by the collar, slammed him against the wall, gun to his temple. He dropped the phone, hands shaking. "Where's Mace?" I hissed. He ain't here tonight. Said he handling something uptown." I glanced at Tino. "Guess we lucky." Tino nodded toward the side door. "Let's move." We tied the guy's wrists with duct tape and gagged him, leaving him slumped behind the crate. Then we slipped inside. The warehouse was a maze of shadows and stacked pallets. Music thumped faintly from a speaker somewhere, and the air smelled like gun oil and cheap weed. 2 Bloods were counting cash at a table near the center. Another cleaning a rifle. Tino mouthed, "Left. Distraction." I tossed a rock toward the far side, clattered loud enough to draw attention. When they turned, Tino rushed the nearest one, quiet, clean takedown. I hit the other with the butt of my gun. He went down hard. We dragged the bodies behind a stack of boxes, hearts pounding. Tino pulled the C4 from his bag, attached it to a support beam, and set the timer. 5 minutes once I hit this. Then footsteps. Someone coming from the office upstairs. We froze. The door opened, light spilling down the staircase. A figure stepped out, red jacket, cigarette glowing. "Yo, what the?" I fired. The bullet caught him in the shoulder, spinning him sideways. He screamed, stumbled, and fell down the stairs. "Time's up," Tino growled, hitting the timer. We sprinted out the side door as alarms started blaring. Shouts behind us, boots slamming on metal stairs. Bullets whistled past as we jumped the fence and hit the alley running. Tino pressed the remote on his phone. Boom! The explosion ripped through the night. A deep, chest-shaking roar that lit up the sky in orange and black. Windows shattered 2 blocks away. A fireball rolled up into the rain, painting the clouds red. We didn't stop until we were back in the car, lungs burning, ears ringing. Tino hooped, slapping the steering wheel. Damn, you see that? I couldn't help but grin. Yeah, that's for Jalen. For everything. He looked at me sideways. You really think this ends it? I looked out the window at the burning sky. No, but it evens the score. By dawn, the city was crawling with sirens and whispers. Word spread fast. Someone hit the Blood's main stash spot. Cops were all over, but everyone on the block knew better. This wasn't police work. This was payback. We hid out in an old motel off Florence. Cracked walls, buzzing neon, the kind of place where people came to disappear. Tino crashed on the couch, snoring softly. I sat by the window, watching the rain streak the glass, thinking about Mom. I dialed the burner. One ring, then her voice, tired but steady. Baby, Ma, you good? I'm fine. Some friend of yours moved me last night. Said it was an emergency. You doing okay? I hesitated. Working on it. There was silence. Then she said, I don't want to know, do I? No, ma'am. She sighed. Then don't get yourself killed. I smiled faintly. I'll try. Don't try, she said softly. Do. Then the line went dead. An hour later, the motel door rattled. Not a knock, a kick. I dove for my gun as 3 figures burst in, red rags over their faces. Tino woke up just in time to roll off the couch before a shotgun blast tore through it. The air filled with splinters and smoke. Get down, he yelled. I fired back, hitting one in the leg. He screamed, fell hard. Tino grabbed the second by the jacket and slammed him into the wall. I ducked behind the bed as the third fired again, shredding the curtains. The room filled with chaos. Bodies, gunfire, the smell of cordite and sweat. Then click. Empty clip. The Blood with the shotgun smirked, stepping forward. End of the line, Deshaun. But before he could pull the trigger, Tino came up behind him with a broken chair leg and drove it into his back. The guy dropped the shotgun. I grabbed it, spun, and fired. Silence. Smoke. 3 bodies on the floor. Tino leaned against the wall, chest heaving. They found us. I nodded. Mace ain't gonna stop. He looked at me. Then we don't stop either. We left that motel in flames too. Lighter fluid, 1 spark, no witnesses. Everywhere we went, we left smoke and noise behind us, and still the Bloods came. Word on the street said Mace put a bounty so big that even rival sets were sniffing around. I started to feel it, the exhaustion, the paranoia. Every siren sounded like death getting closer. By the 3rd night, we holed up at Kian's garage. He didn't ask questions, just gave us clean clothes and a shower. But I saw the worry in his eyes. D, he said quietly, you ain't gonna win this war. I looked at him. Who said anything about winning? He frowned. Then what's the plan? I tightened the strap on my gun. Make em remember. That night I went alone. Tino tried to stop me, but I needed silence, needed focus. I walked the same streets Jalen used to post on, past the murals, the burned out cars, the walls tagged with red crowns. Every block had ghosts now, faces I knew but couldn't save. I ended up in front of the church on 91st, the one Mace's crew used for community meetings. Lights were still on inside. Voices, laughter. Through the window I saw Mace. He was sitting at the front table, cigar in hand, telling his soldiers how they were going to rebuild. Stronger, meaner, bloodier. There was an open casket near the altar. Jalen, my breath caught. They'd turned his funeral into a war meeting. Mace raised his glass. To family, to the blood that don't fade. The others echoed him. Blood don't fade, banging their fists on the table. I stepped back into the shadows, heart hammering. For a second, I thought about just leaving. Then I remembered my mother's words. You can't fix blood with more blood. She was right, but sometimes the streets don't give you another language. I slipped in through the side door, keeping low. The smell of candle wax and liquor mixed with the faint trace of bleach. Somebody had cleaned up blood in here recently. There were maybe 15 of them. Too many for a fair fight, but I wasn't looking for fair. I took the Molotov from my jacket, lit the rag, and whispered, "For everything you took." Then I threw it. The bottle exploded across the front table, flames rushing up the walls, catching banners, liquor, everything. The room erupted in screams. Mace jumped back, shouting orders, gun in hand. I ran. Bullets chased me through the pews as the fire spread. The whole place was going up fast, wood cracking, glass shattering. I dove out the side window, rolled across the grass, and sprinted into the alley. Behind me, the church burned like a living thing. Sirens wailed, but I didn't look back. I just kept running. By the time I reached the main street, my lungs were on fire. I ducked into an abandoned laundromat, collapsed behind the counter, and finally let it hit me. The weight, the exhaustion, the blood on my hands that wouldn't wash off no matter how much rain fell. Tino called a few minutes later. "Bro, I seen the smoke. Tell me that wasn't you." I laughed weakly. Guess the devil got himself a new chapel. He was silent for a moment. "They ain't gonna stop, D. You know that, right? Then neither will I." He sighed. "You gonna get yourself killed?" "Maybe," I said, "but not before I bury Mace." And as I hung up, I caught my reflection in the broken mirror behind the counter. Eyes hollow, hoodie torn, blood and ash on my face. I barely recognized myself anymore, but the streets would. They always remember. The first time I killed a man, it wasn't because I wanted to. It was because he left me no choice. That night still lives in my head. The way the rain slid down his red jacket, the sound of his breath rattling through a hole I just put in his chest. I remember standing over him, chest heaving, gun trembling in my hand, and realizing that the street had just claimed me for good. I wasn't the same after that. The days that followed were a blur. Whiskey, sleepless nights, and that constant hum in my ears like the city was whispering my name in every siren. I'd gone from a scared kid running from the Bloods to something they couldn't predict. A ghost with a grudge. Word spread fast. The kid who took down Marcus in the alley was still breathing. And he wasn't hiding anymore. By midweek, I had a plan. Not a smart one, but the kind that felt right when your soul's already halfway to hell. I knew their operation ran out of a garage on 47th, a chop shop where they stripped stolen cars and cut the dope. Red flags painted on the walls, loud music, burnt rubber in the air. I'd been there once, years ago, when my cousin worked the door. Back then, it felt untouchable, like something holy to them. Now it just looked like a tomb waiting to happen. I prepped for 2 days. No crew, no backup. Just me, my Glock, and the last bit of sense I had left. I slept in abandoned buildings, watched the shop from across the street, counted heads. They were always deep 5, sometimes 6 in rotation. 2 armed, 2 lookouts, 1 or 2 inside cutting the product. I told myself I'd only hit them to send a message. Not to kill anyone. Just burn their stash. Let them know I wasn't some kid they could scare. But that's the thing about revenge. It never stops where you plan it to. The night I moved in, the sky was cracked open with thunder. Perfect cover. I slipped through the alley with a mask on and my hoodie pulled low. The smell of oil and gunmetal hit first. That mechanic stink that clings to everything. Through the side window, I saw one of them. Tino, a short dude with braids, laughing while counting stacks on the table. Another was bagging powder, music blasting low. I recognized both. They'd been at the basketball court that night, the night Marcus died. I waited until one of them went out back to smoke, then crept in through the side. My heart was a war drum. Inside, it felt like another world. Neon lights bouncing off chrome, red flags hanging like trophies. I crept behind the first one, the one still counting cash. My hand shook when I raised the gun. "Don't move," I whispered. He froze, the music still playing. "Yo, who the F? Quiet," I hissed. "Where's your stash?" He pointed toward a duffel bag by the wall. My pulse was pounding so loud I couldn't hear anything else. That's when the back door opened. The one outside came in, cigarette still burning between his lips, and saw me. "Oh," he screamed. Everything exploded. I dove for cover as bullets tore through the wall. The room lit up with flashes of red and white. I felt one graze my arm, hot fire ripping through the skin. I fired back blindly, 1, 2, 3 shots, the smell of cordite thick as smoke. Someone yelled, someone fell. I didn't wait to see who. I grabbed the duffel, kicked over the table, and ran out the side door as thunder split the sky. My heart was beating out of my chest as I hit the alley. Rain poured down like the world was washing me clean. But I knew better. Nothing was ever clean in this life. By morning, I was on every corner of their radar. The Bloods were moving like a hive torn open. Red rags in every car. Faces I hadn't seen in years suddenly crawling out of the woodwork. Couldn't stay still. I moved from block to block, sleeping in basements, keeping my head down. Every sound, every door creak, every car backfire felt like the start of another chase. But fear had turned into something else, purpose. I crossed the line already, couldn't go back. A week later, I went to see Leon, an old mechanic who'd worked for my uncle back in the day. He was neutral, didn't claim any set, just fixed engines and stayed alive by keeping his mouth shut. When I walked into his shop, he froze like he'd seen a ghost. "Jesus, Kay," he muttered, wiping his hands on a rag. "You look like hell." "Yeah," I said, pulling off my hoodie. "I've been there." He eyed the blood on my sleeve, the bandage. "You're in deep, son. Word is you hit the blood spot on 47th. "You crazy." "Maybe," I said. "I need something clean, big enough to make noise." He hesitated, then sighed and opened a drawer behind the counter, pulled out a wrapped piece, a 9mm with a full mag. "This was your uncle's," he said quietly. He swore he'd never use it again. I took it. The grip was cold, heavy, like it had been waiting. "You sure about this?" he asked. I looked at him, at his tired eyes, the oil under his nails. A man who'd seen too many kids like me burn out before they hit 20. "I started something," I said. "I gotta finish it." That night, I tracked down Red, the Blood Street boss for this side of town. I knew his type. Flashy, loud, always rolling deep. But lately, he'd gotten sloppy, showing up to the same club on 39th every Friday. If I could get him alone, even for a minute, maybe I could end this before it swallowed the whole block. So I waited, for hours, watching from across the street as the neon lights flickered over the rain-slick pavement. Cars came and went, bass thumping through the walls. Then around 2 a.m. he stepped out, big coat, red chain, laughing with two of his guys. My palms were sweating. I followed at a distance, keeping to the shadows. They walked toward a black Charger parked under the flickering streetlight. When the two bodyguards split off to grab something from the trunk, Red stayed by the door, checking his phone. That's when I moved. I came out of the dark fast, gun raised. "Don't move." He looked up, eyes narrowing. "You got death wish, lil man?" "Maybe." The gun shook in my hand. The streetlight buzzed overhead. "You think talking me down changes anything?" he said, grinning. "You one man. We a family." I stepped closer. "Family don't kill their own." He laughed. That deep, ugly sound that made my skin crawl. "You ain't one of us, never was." I hesitated just a second, but that was enough. He lunged. The gun went off once, twice, thunder cracking over the night. He stumbled back, clutching his chest, eyes wide like he couldn't believe it. The bodyguards came running. I bolted. Tires screeched. Shouts echoed behind me. Bullets sparked off the walls as I sprinted down the alley, heart pounding so loud I couldn't hear my own thoughts. I cut through the fence, dove behind a dumpster, gasping. My hand was shaking, blood slicking the grip of the gun. From the street, I heard them shouting, angry, desperate. "Find him! Find that kid!" Then silence. I stayed there until dawn. By morning, the news was everywhere. Local gang leader gunned down outside 39th Street Club. Police lights, reporters, chaos. They didn't know it was me. Not yet, but everyone else did. People looked at me different on the block now, whispers, glances, fear. Some said I was cursed, others said I was crazy. Maybe both were true. I'd gone to war with the Bloods, and I was still breathing. But the thing about blood, it always calls more blood. That night, as I sat alone in the motel room, staring at the gun on the table, I felt it, the weight of what I'd done. The city outside pulsed red and blue through the window blinds. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. I thought about my mother, how she used to pray for me every night, even when I stopped coming home. I thought about the faces of the ones I'd lost, my brother, Marcus, even Red. Every one of them was part of the same story now, and I was the last one left to tell it. Then came the knock on the door. 3 slow taps. I froze. Another knock, louder this time. "Yo, open up, Kay. It's Leon." I hesitated, gun in hand. Then I cracked the door open. Leon stood there, face pale, sweat glistening on his forehead. "They know," he whispered. "You gotta move. Now." "What?" "The Bloods. They hit the shop. Looking for you." I barely got out. My stomach dropped. "How long?" "Minutes," he said. "Maybe less." I looked around the room, the gun, the duffel bag, the window. There was no time. "They won't stop," Leon said quietly. "You hear me? You killed their boss. You think they gonna forgive that?" I nodded slowly, mind spinning. "I ain't looking for forgiveness," I said. "Just an ending." He stared at me, eyes full of something between pity and pride. "You sound just like your uncle." Then he turned to leave. "Where you going?" I asked. "Far away from here," he said. "Ain't no winning this war, kid. Not for people like us." When he left, I sat on the edge of the bed and watched the light crawl across the walls. The city was quiet, too quiet. Somewhere out there, a dozen red flags were hunting me, and I couldn't run forever. I reached for the gun, slid the clip in, and stood up. If this was the life the streets gave me, then I'd finish it on my own terms. They came for me at dawn. The first thing I heard was my mother's radio, soft gospel playing like the world was fine when it wasn't. Then glass, then boots, then the house filled with a smell I didn't recognize, like cold metal and wet cotton. Fear soaked into the walls. I moved before I thought, shoving my shoulder into the bedroom door and catching a flash of crimson cloth disappearing down the hall. "Ma!" I screamed. Loretta was in the kitchen, hands up, eyes wide as plates. Behind her, 2 men in red stood with guns pointed at their own neighbors, faces hard like they had traded their souls for a paycheck. There was a third man, not blood colors, just a pale-faced kid in a gray hoodie. His hands wrapped tightly around a pistol, shaking. He looked at me like he'd been given a job he didn't understand, like someone taught him how to pull a trigger but not how to live with what it did to your insides. "Mace sent us?" The bigger of the 2 said, voice tired, like he'd said those words 100 times. "We don't want no trouble. Just tell us where he is." I didn't answer. My throat felt like paper. The kid in the gray hoodie stepped forward like he wanted to be the man in the room. "We don't want to hurt her. Give us the kid. And none of this gotta." I dropped to my knees, hands out. Take me instead." My mom's face broke open then. The brave woman who braided my hair when I was 7, who sat up nights counting bills, who told me God had a plan even when I stopped going to church. She grabbed my hand like I was the only rope she had to hold on to this life. "No," she whispered. I could see the tremor in her fingers. "You ain't leaving me here. Don't make this harder than it gotta be," the big one warned. Then the kid in the gray hoodie did something I didn't expect. He looked at my mom, at the tremble in her lips, and his face went soft, like a dog that got left at the shelter. He started. His finger tightened on the trigger. Everything that I'd been carrying, the planning, the smoke, the noise, narrowed into the second before the gun went off. Bang! Pain seared through my shoulder. I tasted metal and iron. For a second, the room spun wild and the radio in the corner sounded like it was underwater. The kid's eyes went wide, like he'd shot the sun by mistake. He dropped the gun and fell to his knees, hands over his face, and the 2 Bloods moved as if someone had pulled their strings. Sudden, efficient. They dragged me outside, my mom screaming my name into a sky that felt like it was closing in. I saw the street, red flags tied to porch posts, cars idling with windows down, the block watching like a jury. A crowd pressed in. Cell phones glowed like little stars. They pushed me into the back of a Suburban, the one with the placenta of smoke in the trunk. and the ride was long and slow. Every bump in the road felt like a hammer to my chest. My shoulder ached, blood cooling under my hoodie. Mace walked up to the car when we stopped, face clean, no hurry, like he'd come to dinner and I was late. He was calm in a way that made calm sound evil. "You made it personal," he said, as if commenting on the weather. "You try to burn my church, blow my stash, kill my boys. So now you made it personal for me." He slid into the passenger seat and looked at me, up close. For the first time in my life, I saw the mirror, that face I could have been if I'd never learned how to feel. Hardened, small-eyed, full of old hurt. He wasn't a monster born one day. He was a man stitched together by the same streets that shaped me. "You think you missioned the block? You think you the hero?" he asked. There was something like pity in his voice, thin as paper. "This ain't your story, D. It's ours." He tapped his temple. "You startin' something you can't stop." We drove. The city blurred. Flickering lights, murals, a church steeple I once prayed in. Every street we passed was just another page in a book that smelled like smoke. My wrists were bound too tight, and the blood on my sleeve felt like it belonged to someone else. At the lot where they took me, it was quiet and flat. An empty patch behind an old bodega, chain link fence and weeds. Half the crew was there, faces red with sleep and anger. Mace didn't waste words. He pointed at me. "Enough." They made me sit on a milk crate in a ring of faces that had history in their eyes. They wanted me to feel small. I didn't. "Where'd you get the idea you could walk?" Mace asked, slow. "You turned my life into a cemetery," I said. My voice came out raw and small, but it was mine. He laughed soft. "We protect our own." I thought about Jalen, about the kid in the red hoodie with too much pride and no plan, about how life had been when it was small, when a scraped knee was the worst thing between us and the world. I wanted to tell them that the boy in the ground that day had been someone's son, someone's weak, someone's stupid kid. But no one wanted that language. They wanted punishment. They beat me until my vision worried at the edges. Leather and knuckles and boots. Names like war drums. They made me watch as they took the things I'd burned, the pictures I'd carried of my mom and former life, and stomped them into the mud. They wanted me to shrivel, to break. Then they left me. Not dead, but not quite alive. On the curb with my blood drying into the cracks. 2 hours later, Tino found me. He didn't say a word. He just sat next to me on the cold curb and passed me a bottle of warm whiskey. The street smelled like damp cardboard and loss. "You should have come with me," I rasped. Tino looked at me with that tired look again. He was bleeding from a shallow cut along his jaw where someone had run him with a knife. "I tried. You led me into this." "No," his voice was flat, like a tire going soft. "I tried to pull you out, but you kept running back in. And when you started talking leaders out, you put a price nobody could ignore." I put my head in my hands. The world had a cardboard edge. "What now?" I asked. He shrugged. "Now? You decide if you gon' be a ghost or if you gon' be a martyr." That night, I didn't sleep. I sat on the roof of a grocery store, watching the lights hide behind the smog and thinking about all the things I could have done different. Not swing that first time, walk away, take a bus, leave town. But the weight of it had settled in a place in my chest that made every future decision feel crooked. 2 nights later, they took my mother. It wasn't a movie move with throbbing strings and slow-mo. It was quiet and ugly. Someone kicked in the door while she was on her knees praying with the radio. They took her like they took everything that mattered. Small, cruel, efficient. No ransom, no spectacle, just a message. I found out when I walked into our apartment and saw the chair pushed back, the pot still steaming on the stove, dinner gone cold. On the counter, a single red bandana folded into a small square, like a note. My knees went out from under me. The world split down the middle and my heart fell into the crack. Tino caught me as I tried to sink to the floor and carried me outside like a father carrying a dead son. He held me while I screamed until my throat tore raw, until sound was nothing but blood and rain. "How could they?" I whispered to the sky. "How could you?" Came a voice that wasn't mine. It was the street. It was every parent who had buried a child for nothing. I wanted to run into the night and rip the city into pieces. Instead, I put on my hoodie and walked to the one place I knew where my pain would focus. Mesa's lot. This time I came with a plan that could not be undone. The warehouse on 92nd was rebuilt after the first blast, but they had set security sharper this time. Cameras, men drunk on revenge, new boys who only knew rules through gun barrels. Couldn't bring more men. I had to bring a way to make the whole thing collapse on itself. I called Kian. He was the steady one. He always had been. He'd kept his head down, fixed cars at the uncle's garage, married his high school sweetheart, tried to be normal like it was a thing you could be. When I told him what I planned, he didn't laugh. He didn't try to stop me. He asked only 3 things. His daughter's name, if mom was alive, and whether I'd be back. I'll be back, I lied. Kian checked his eyelids like he was used to sleeplessness. You gonna end up dead if you go alone. I know. Then you leave me something to explain. He reached out and gripped my wrist. Skin on skin, man to man. Come back safe. I hugged him like we'd been friends for a lifetime. No words could wrap around the grief we both carried. Kian didn't come with me. He never did. He gave me something better. A car battery, a relay switch, and a route cut through alleys that only he knew. He whispered, "If you don't come back, tell my girl I loved her daddy." I didn't say anything. I just nodded, swallowed the salt in my mouth, and walked out into the rain. The plan was simple in its brutality. Get inside the lot as the boys changed shifts, set the relay to fry the electrical panels that powered their cameras, and then set the stack of gas cans I'd put near the walls. No alarms, no witnesses. If the building burned down properly, it would take weeks to rebuild, maybe months. It would cost Mace the goddamn empire. I moved with a kind of numbness that made my feet light. The city shadowed me. I cut the wires with a precision that came from a place I didn't understand, the place that learned how to do things necessary to survive. Every step was metal and prayer. I got in. The relay worked. No camera screamed. I set the gas like a surgeon in reverse, spread the oil like a wound. My hands trembled, but my eyes were cold. I lit the rag and threw. The building took to flame like truth takes a lie. Windows imploded. Sparks flew like caged birds. The lot erupted. A living coal, swallowing the night. I felt something in me lift and then drop like an anchor. I ran. They chased me. Bullets chased me. I cut through alleys Kian showed me, jumped fences, slid under trucks. The phone in my pocket buzzed. Tino. I didn't answer. Couldn't. I had to go one more block, one more fence. Then the sound I hated most. A car idling, doors opening. A voice calling my name like it owned every syllable. Deshaun. Stop. I kept moving. I slid behind an overturned dumpster and felt the ground give a little. My leg went out from under me. Pain shot up my thigh and I tasted copper. Mace stepped into the light, face all angle and moonlight, and behind him, a dozen men with guns. You really thought you could kill us and then come back for brunch? He said. I came to end it, I said. My voice sounded small in the open. He smiled like he used to when he'd been young and still believed in something pure. You end it? Maybe. Or maybe you just started the real story. They circled. I had one clip left and a duffel of smoke grenades. I could hear the city waiting, holding its breath to see how this final chapter would read. I didn't beg. I didn't bargain. I thought about Mom's hands, Kian's daughter, Tino's tired eyes. I thought about Jalen lying on the pavement that first night and how stupid Forever looked from down there. I stood up. Let's finish this, I said. Boots hit dirt and the rat-a-tat-tat started. I moved like I'd been taught by necessity. Low, quick, with a kind of grace that came from hard decades compressed into a life. One by one, I took shots that landed. One beside the truck, a man fell like a puppet whose string got cut. Another took a round in the leg and howled. But they were too many. A bullet tore into my stomach and the world folded to the sides like pages. It tasted bile. I heard Tino yelling my name like he was a man drowning. I saw Kian's car flash by with headlights like a proper saint. I felt a pain so clean it lit up the night. Mace stood at the edge of the lot like a conductor. He walked up to me while soldiers closed in like he wanted the theater of it. He didn't pull his gun. He wanted me to see his face. He wanted me to know what victory looked like. "You really thought you could change the rules?" he whispered, standing over me. Up close, he looked tired, older than his years. There was no gloat left in him, only the relief of a man who finally got what he wanted. I spat blood and grinned, half crazy. "You're not the only one who remembers how to fight." He bent down, face inches from mine, and for a second I thought he might kill me there, fast and merciful. Instead, he did something worse. He whispered, soft as rain, "Tell him it was a lesson. Tell your people, streets don't forget." He stood up, and they left me there, bleeding, broken, but not finished. They didn't finish me because when the sun found its way through the smoke, the city already had a rumor blooming. Deshawn had been seen standing on the lot, screaming, fighting like the devil had a quota and he'd fill it. I was dragged back to the block, body slung over someone's shoulder like a sack. They left me under a street lamp and someone, Tino I think, put a blanket over me. I slept or passed out or something that looked like sleep. Night unspooled. People walked by and spat and others left offerings. A cigarette, a paper cup of coffee, a note that said only 2 words, "Not forgotten." When I woke, the world looked different. The sky was bruised, the smell of smoke in the air like a permanent tattoo. My side ached in a way that told me I had given something heavy. My hand found something in the dirt near me, a red bandana, folded neat. I wrapped it around my wrist like a vow. They thought they'd won by taking everything, but in their victory was a crack. In their triumph, they left a hole big enough for anyone brave or stupid enough to crawl through. I smiled, soft and small, and tasted the ash on my tongue. The street had taken a lot. It had taken my mother, my peace, my past. But it hadn't taken the thing that got me out of bed at night, the promise that when it was time to tell the story, I'd say the truth. And the truth was this: you can burn a city down, take the lives you want, drown prayers in gasoline, but the streets remember. They keep a ledger, long and patient. And some of us keep our names in it by choosing when to be ghosts and when to be fire. I pulled the bandana tight and held it there like it was a map. Because if they thought this was the end, they were wrong.